So I came out for another hike today. I'm looking around to see if I can find any more wild teas, wild edibles, medicinal mushrooms, whatever I could find. I've been having some success, not a lot, but some success, but it's time now to stop and have some lunch. And you know, the forests right now in Nova Scotia are bone dry. I wouldn't be surprised to see a ban on woods travel, let alone a ban on fires very shortly. In addition to being sunny, hot and dry, the winds are also quite high. Those are conditions that can easily lead to a forest fire. So I thought in order to have my lunch today, I'm going to have to use one of my small wood stoves. So this is one that I actually haven't used in the woods yet. The stove I have, the pot I have not. It's a new combination I put together. I thought you may be interested in seeing this new, another one of those budget wood stove setups made from things that I picked up at Value Village. If you're interested in seeing what I put together, stay tuned. Okay, here's the stove in its stuff sack, and I'll take it apart for you. This is another one of those stuff sacks that I made from materials that I had around the house. Lid, wash kit, stove itself, the rest of the pot, a couple of accessories. If I don't lose them, which I'll show you in a second. So the stove is another one of those utensil strainers. Now this is not an IKEA version. This is one that I picked up at the Real Atlantic Superstore here in Halifax a couple of years ago. They were selling them at $3 each. I was in the other day, I don't see them anymore, but they're pretty much identical to the ones by IKEA. There are some slight variations, but the size is pretty much identical. And I bought enough of these and played around with them that I tried some different designs on them. The feet on the bottom, little tiny pieces of 3/4 inch angle bracket, and they're just held in by some little nuts, bolts and lock washers. I have a feed port on the lower half on this side, and around the top I've made some openings just by connecting the holes that already existed. You can see how the pattern of holes is on the side of the utensil strainer. That's just to be a little bit different. There are holes drilled at the top on both sides. And I made a couple of little rods, little tiny rods, and what they're designed for is to go through those holes and what you can see I have now is there's just two rods going across just below the surface of the stove itself. That'll allow me to put something smaller on top of this, such as a water bottle or a GSI canteen cup, those types of things. They'll fit on top without having to use any crossbars to hold them up. In addition, I did make some crossbars. 2 crossbars made from aluminum. Very sooty right now. Should have cleaned them up, I guess. And I know that I've had people ask about how these are made, and I am going to show that. I'm actually going to do a full build of an IKEA Hobo stove right from scratch. So I will show how I make these things as well as how I do the rest of the work on them. But the crossbars are what I'm going to use today, and they will just sit on top, and they'll hold the pot about 3/4 of an inch off the top of the stove, just enough so that there's a gap for the air to move underneath the pot and up through the stove. So the pot, this is what's probably different from the other Hobo stoves that I have. Picked this up at Value Village for, it was either 50 or 99 cents. And just a stainless steel pot with a handle, no bail. It does have a bakelite or plastic lid on top, because I intend this to work strictly pretty much with this stove. Now, yes, I could put it up against a fire, I guess, and maybe at some point I will remove the plastic knob on top. 13 centimeters. So it's slightly larger than my 12 centimeter zebra pot, but slightly smaller than my 14 centimeter MSR Stowaway pot or the 14 centimeter Solo pot, the Solo 1800 pot. That's just a nice size. This allows the IKEA Hobo stoves, or in this case the Superstore Hobo stove, to sit down inside the pot. That'll hold a fair amount of water, and it's the size and shape that I wanted today because I have a special lunch that I want to show you once I get this started. So I'm going to set the stove up in an existing fire pit, which does have a stone base and stones around it, just to protect it from the wind and protect it just in case any of the embers did fall through or get caught by the wind. But first I have to get some water, so stand by. All right, so I've got the stove set up in the fire pit, and I have it loaded for a top-down burn, meaning I have a lot of, all hardwood sticks cut quite short or broken quite short, stuffed into the pot fairly tightly, a little bit of room inside, 1 or 2 pieces of birch bark planted down the middle, but otherwise not a lot of space in there. I have some birch bark here that I'm going to light up to put on top. I have a few feathers made from hardwood that I'll put on top, but I also have a small pile of very, very fine pine twigs, because the idea is to build a fire on top of the wood that's here, and then it will start burning down through. So I have my pot of water over here, my crossbars here, and in the background you can see my dry bag full of water in case I need it for spare water, or if I need it to control the fire if it starts to get out of control. So the birch bark here I don't think I need to fluff up too much. We'll see if we can get it started. There we go. Well, windy today. All right, let's try a little fluffing up. I'll use this other piece to go from there. All right, try it again. Very good. There are feathers on top of that. Give it a second at those to catch. I'll put my fine little pine twigs on top of that. All right, we're starting to catch on now. Okay, I'm going to let the fire establish itself. Then I'll put the crossbars on, and I'll bring it back when I'm ready to put the water on. So I had some company for a little while, and my water's been boiling for quite some time, enough that I've had to start to feed some new sticks in to keep the fire going. But when my water came to a boil, all I had to do was to drop my lunch in. My lunch is in a bag that I can sit right in the boiling water. It's completely sealed in, and it's a meal. I think I've mentioned these before, but it's a meal that I pick up in the grocery stores and in Walmart and places like that. Kitchens of India. It's a line of curry dishes that are made up. They're all vegetarian. I have something I'm going to add to mine. I'll share with you in a couple of minutes' time. And this one is a spinach and cottage cheese curry. Sounds a little odd. I haven't had it before, but everything else I've had from them has been very tasty. Not a lot of food, just enough for one person, unless you add something to it, which is exactly what I'm going to do in a few minutes' time. But it's been sitting in the water for a while, and it takes probably 5-10 minutes, depending on how hot your water is, to bring it up to a temperature. You could eat it right from that Mylar package, but I have a bowl I'm going to be putting mine in. But so far this little stove and pot is working out perfectly. The nice thing about doing this with the lunch, having one that you can drop right in, is that the water remains clean and I can use it afterwards for my tea or my coffee. Alright, I'll bring it back when I have my lunch ready. I'm just waiting to have my lunch. My water is just heating up my lunch. It's almost ready. I wanted to give a shout out to another fellow YouTuber, a friend of mine from Ontario, Wade at Woods Walker 1965. Wade and I were chatting at one time online, and I had mentioned that one of the things I miss, or the things that you can't get in Canada that you can get in the United States, were the single packets of Spam, so you can have one per meal. And Wade said, well, hang on my friend, and apparently he was on his way to the States, and when he got back, mailed me 3. So I've got 3 of these nice packets of individual packets of Spam. Now Spam may not be your thing, it's not something I eat every day, but once in a while it's a bit of a treat. So I'm going to cut it up and I'm going to put this in my lunch to add to the volume of it and add a little protein to that lunch. Alright. There's my lunch all cooked up. Down a little bit. Now you could eat right out of the envelope. It worked perfectly well. I wanted to be able to mix in my, ooh, that's hot, my Spam. Wow, what a smell. That's hot. Where's my spoon? Okay. First glance, I can't say this is the most appetizing looking thing, but I haven't had a spinach curry before, so it is hot right now. Smells good. Oh, it's tasty and spicy. Well, that's going to be good. Got to put a little bit more water in my kettle here so I can add some tea afterwards. And a little hot. I'll bring it back when it's time to have some coffee. So I finished my lunch and I thought I'd just show you that Hobo kit one more time. So there's my pot, the dollar store pot and lid. That's what it should look like, right? Clean pot doesn't tell you any stories. This one tells lots of stories now, at least one story, been it once. Little Hobo stove, it is so light, made from a utensil straightener, not an IKEA one, but one that very much like it, works just perfectly. And that will fit down inside my pot. Now the lid doesn't fit on perfectly, but that's okay because it'll all fit inside this stuff sack that I made for it. The crossbars and everything else will fit down inside the bag. There we go. Lightweight, complete, everything I need on a day like this. It is windy. I can't tell you how windy it is. I'm glad I'm not out on a canoe right now. An open fire would have been a hazard, to say the least. Having that fire pit there with the stone base and the stone walls, and using this was a much safer way to go. I'm glad I brought this out. Like all small stick stoves, you got to have a steady supply of wood. That top-down feed, where you stack it full of wood to start with and burn a light little fire on top, that'll go the longest, but even then, that eventually will burn through. I guess it depends on how long you're going to have your pot of water on the stove for. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the idea of that lunch. That lunch was really tasty, so it may be something you want to look for as well. But get out to the dollar store. Look for something that's cheap, inexpensive, and make your own Hobo stove. I do plan on making a video on making a Hobo stove and cook kit from scratch, so you'll see how I do it. But mine's not the only way. I'd be interested in hearing from you. How do you make yours? All right, until next time, get out and explore. Take the path less traveled. It'll make all the difference. Bye for now.